Welcome to the last day of the Truthmaker Semantics conference. It has been a very enjoyable event so far for me, and I'm grateful to all of you for that. It's my great pleasure to introduce Reinhard Muskens today. At about the same time I started doing semantics, airlines started charging extra for luggage. And this is known in economics as unbundling. They used to offer a package deal, and now you can separate the individual components. Among the many pieces of very impressive work that Reinhard has done, there's one that stands out for me especially. It's his 1995 book on meaning and partiality. And among the many things he does in that book is something that I think of as unbundling for situation semantics. Situation semantics had previously been proposed as a kind of a wholesale package deal that involves a, from the point of view of a formal semanticist who grew up with possible world semantics, a radically different ontology with things like states and situations and whatnot, and things that make a proposition neither true nor false. And it also came with all kinds of non-standard type theories and the like. What Reinhard showed is that you can import the main insights of situation semantics into the kind of logic that formal semanticists are used to, namely TY2, which is similar to Montague's intensional logic. And so when I invited Reinhard to this conference, I was hoping that we would be able to draw on his wisdom as regards Truthmaker Semantics as well. And I'm very much looking forward to Reinhard's talk now on a bilateral Truthmaker Semantics for a fragment of English. Thank
you very much. Does this work? Okay, thank you very much, Lucas, for this very nice introduction. Very happy to be here. I want to thank the organizer and again, organizers, and again, Lucas, for inviting me. I'm probably the only speaker at this conference who was invited before he did any substantial work on Truthmaker Semantics. so it has been a very nice conference until now, but I'm not sure. So yeah, that's what I want to do is exactly what Lucas mentioned. I want to basically give, let's say, an integration of Truthmaker Semantics and Montague grammar. And let me go to my first slide. Oh yeah, well, I have to do this. Now it's no longer working. But okay, thank you. So I will develop a Truthmaker Semantics compositionally, or that works compositionally for small fragment of English. And my general outlook on what is needed here, I mean, from the perspective of linguistics, from the perspective of a linguist who wants to do Truthmaker Semantics, is very close to what is exemplified by two papers by Lucas again and Timothée Bernard. But the version of Truthmaker Semantics that I will opt for is a bilateral version. Right? That connects with my previous work and also work that I did not long ago for Maria Aloni's bilateral state-based semantics, which would all encourage you to look at. So it's in Semantics and Pragmatics. It's a very nice theory. It's not my theory. It's Maria Aloni's theory. It's a very nice theory. And I also wanted to do an integration. And so when Lucas invited me, I already had done that, so I could very easily accept the invitation. So I'm not going to define a truthmaker logic in the logical sense. You give a syntax for the particular constructs of your logic, then you give a semantics, and that's it. But I'm going to basically emulate that logic, the existing ideas within Truthmaker, within the theory of types. And I will explain in a moment why that is, why linguists do that. Because otherwise, why is he doing classical logic here? But that's the reason is will come soon. So my main interest is in the general techniques that are needed to provide a natural language fragment of reasonable size with a bilateral truthmaker semantics. I'm not so much interested in the exact translations of lexical items at this moment. It's very important, but at this moment I just want to give the general framework. So it's more or less a proof of concept. Okay, so here's my table of contents. So first I will explain to you in a few slides why linguistic semantics needs the theory of types, or, well, can at the moment cannot really do without the theory of types. Then I will give you an abstract interface between syntax and semantics based on the theory of types. Then I will become slightly more technical and give you a kind of general recipe for what if I have a bilateral logic and want to do it within the theory of types. Then I will give you a toy fragment because, that's my proof of concept. So here is your toy fragment, and maybe the translations are crazy, but they follow a general pattern that you could use again for. And then I'll come to a conclusion. And the references are for people who will look at my slides later if they are interested. So why does linguistic semantics need the theory of types? I will go back in history to Russell on denoting. This will be a very, very short history. Don't worry. So what Russell says, and I will give the quotation, on denoting in 1905, this is the principle of the theory of denoting I wish to advocate, that denoting phrases never have any meaning in themselves. This is important. But that every proposition in whose verbal expression they occur has a meaning. Now, denoting phrases are what linguists would now call determiner phrases, or a few decades ago, noun phrases. Like every man, the center of mass of the solar system, the revolution of the sun around the earth, etc., etc. These are actually Russell's examples. Right? And Russell's theory has been very, very influential in analytic philosophy. And one of its consequences is that the grammatical subject-predicate form was thought to be misleading and should be replaced by a predicate logical form. Right? This was generally believed, a general, thing among analytic philosophers, certainly among the first part of the 20th century, But a consequence of Russell's, sometimes called misleading form thesis, was that it more or less blocked interaction between linguists and analytic philosophers, because you cannot convince any linguist that subject-predicate form is somehow isn't there, right? So it is there, and this, this situation endured until Richard Montague in the late 1960s. The book is from 1974, after his death, actually, showed how Russell's own theory of types can be used to have it both ways. This is kind of cake situation. You can have your cake and eat it, or eat your cake and have it. So he did kind of Boris Johnson there. You can have Russell's translations from language to logic, and also the principle that if a natural language sentence has meaning, all its constituent parts also have meaning. Right? That's what he was denying in the quote that I gave you before. And it follows the principle of compositionality. The meaning of a compound expression is a function of the meanings of its parts and of the way they are syntactically combined. This is Barbara Perttee's formulation. And Montague was not, so he never mentioned compositionality, I believe. But he was basically thinking of, well, an interpreted language natural language is not so much different from artificial languages. How do you set up the semantics for a natural language? Well, you first set up the syntax, and then you inductively define the meanings or the semantic values of the constructs in that syntax. So it's basically what he wanted to do is give a Tarski-style semantic evaluation of fragments of natural language. And that led to a new paradigm in linguistic semantics, and we really need the theory of types for that. So here's a little example. It's very, very simple, and it's, also in the sense that I can only use only one function from syntactic composition. We have this sentence here: every girl likes Zuleika. On the left-hand side, you see a diagram that basically shows how a linguist would parse that sentence. Right? So, at the top, we have S for sentence, and then that divides into, well, a denoting phrase or a determiner phrase, right? And on the other hand, the predicate, the verb phrase. And then the denoting phrase divides again into a determiner, every, and a nominal phrase, girl, whereas the verb phrase divides into a verb, likes, transitive verb, and again, a denoting phrase, Zuleika. And now, so how can we how can we give this a meaning in a way which, so that every component here also gets a meaning? Well, we can say, well, let's look at every, right? So we have this translation here in the right upper, every can go to a certain lambda term that takes two predicates and then returns a set of possible worlds. Russell didn't do possible worlds, but I will do possible worlds here. If you leave out the possible worlds, you get Russell's translation. So it takes two predicates. We have variables over predicates, and then it says that it returns a set of possible worlds. There's another lambda w there, such that for all x, if p prime x holds in w, then px also holds in w. So basically, it says that p prime is a subset of p. And then girl goes to girl, and likes goes to, well, basically likes, but I have commuted two arguments. Zuleika goes to Zuleika. And now we can say, well, we have every and we have girl. And now I apply every to girl, and I will get, I do beta conversion, which is valid. And then we have a translation of every girl. That's what Russell didn't have, right? And we can also apply likes to Zuleika and get a translation for likes Zuleika. And then we can combine the two intermediate results that we have, and we get, well, we can see it here below. And after beta conversion again, we get the set of worlds such that for every W, such that for every girl in W, that girl likes Zuleika in W. Right? That would be without the worlds. That would be Russell's translation. So we can have our cake and eat it, but that depends on the theory of types. Okay, so now we are in a predicament because on the one hand, I take it that everybody accepts here that there are good reasons to explore the idea that an ontology of truth makers underlines meaning in natural language. On the other hand, we need a theory of types. And now we can do two things. We can, expand truthmaker logic to also get a theory of types there. That's what I did in my old work. I took four-valued logic, and I said, well, let's make a theory of types out of it. You can do that. But we can also emulate. We can also emulate within the theory of types, right? So just transcribe. Basically, it comes down to transcribing the truth conditions or the semantic conditions. Okay, there are several versions of a type theory. The original version we could call TY1, right? Which is Church's original formulation of the simple theory of types. So that's a simplified version of Russell's original ramified theory of types. Then Henkin at some point came up with a TI0, which is the theory of propositional types. You only have the domain. You start with the domain 0, 1, right? Just the two truth values, and you look at the whole hierarchy of functions over that. And many people now work in TY2, so like Lucas mentioned, but you could go higher, and it basically, so the TYN means the theory of types with n basic types in addition to the type T of truth values. Okay, and for every one of those, except for the first one, which is very special because everything is decidable and whatever. The meta theory is essentially that of TY1. And all these theories are classical. Yeah. Okay, now let me give you an abstract syntax semantics interface. That's a little pet of mine, but it also will work out well here, I think. So it is possible to abstract away from a lot of concrete choices. So what I want to do is basically give what computer scientists call an interface between syntax and semantics in linguistics. Basically, so that well, although some choices are made in this interface, many times a syntactician doesn't have to worry about semantics so much. He can look at the interface and interpret. So he can say, well, here we have a way to connect to semantics, whatever that semantics is. And on the other hand, a semanticist may want to can also look at the other side of the interface and say, well, here we have the interface. I want to connect to any possible syntactic theory that can do that. And I will do that. So, for example, there are several syntactic theories, right? I showed you a tree I just showed you 3, but there are also syntactic theories like, for example, the Lambda calculus that are based on proofs. Right? Proofs in the Lambda calculus actually come with certain lambda terms. Okay. Well, my way to do it is inspired by Philippe de Groot's work. He's working in Nancy. And my own lambda grammars are close, but his formulation was the better one, I think. So basically what we do here is we start with 2 abstract types, E and T, capital E and capital T. E is for names and capital T is for sentences. And then we set up a vocabulary of abstract constants. For example, John will be of type E, Zuleika will be of type E, smoke will be of type E goes to T, woman, etc. Also introduce, takes three arguments of type E and then returns a sentence. Believe takes an agent, a sentence, and then returns a sentence again. Not goes from T to T. And takes 2 arguments of type T and then returns a T. Or the same, every takes 2 predicates of type ET and then returns a sentence. And it is similar. People who have been doing Montague grammar recognize this because this is a simple. It looks very much like the simplest version. And now I say a lambda term is an abstract term, or what I like to call a meaning recipe, if it's built from these abstract constants, or many more perhaps, and variables of type E, with the help of application and lambda abstraction. And the lambda abstraction is then can be constrained to linear lambda abstraction, meaning that every lambda binder binds exactly 1 variable, because there's kind of resource sensitivity coded by that. So what is abstracted away from are the concrete instantiations of E and T and the concrete instantiations of the abstract constants. Basically, there is still no logic here. Well, you can do lambda conversion, etc., but it's basically pure lambda calculus. So these meaning recipes are lambda terms that encode how the meaning of an expression is composed from the meaning of its parts. It's very close to what Johan van Benten called meaning recipes when he was working on the Lambda calculus. They code for combinatorial structure. And I give some examples. Every man loves a woman, and which is ambiguous, right? And Anne believes that Mary knows that the king is not bald. And especially when your notation for lambda terms is the canonical notation, it's a bit ironic. The canonical notation that is used by mathematicians and computer scientists is much better at giving you the terms that are very close to the linguistic structure, right? So especially if I give you this one, people will say, well, that's basically the syntactic tree for this term. And these 2 terms look a lot like what people in syntax call logical forms. Right? Okay. And so, and basically, suppose you have a syntactic framework, you can do the old trick again now, but now with the abstract terms, right? The meaning recipes. And I will not go through it again, but you can now basically first translate every girl likes Zuleika to this, which is really, really trivial in a sense, because it's, and then suppose that you have a possible world set up, and then you instantiate E as small e, and T as ST, sets of possible worlds. right? Characteristic function of functions of sets of possible worlds. And we then instantiate every as the old translation, girl as girl, etc., etc. And then we basically, so we say, right? So we instantiate these abstract constants with certain types. We just say these are equal, and then we can do the same trick again. But we could also do it, we can do it for possible world semantics, but we can also do it for other kinds of semantics, but with other instantiations for E and T, and other instantiations for these abstract terms. Okay, and we'll see another possibility. That's my aim is to work out another possibility. Now, how to emulate bilateral logics in the theory of types? And the question is there a difficulty with it? And at least Lucas and Timothée thought there was a difficulty with it. So I'm sorry for this, but I have a quotation. Since the semantics in common use for lambda calculi, such as TY2, are unilateral, bilateral truthmaker semantics cannot straightforwardly be embedded in such frameworks. And so they thought about it and they said, well, basically it cannot be done. But I think there is in fact a simple trick to do it. And the basic idea is to instantiate the abstract type T, not as ST, like in the modal, the possible worlds approach, right? But as STT, which are relations between states and truth values. And then if P is a meaning recipe of this type T, you can read P as T as S is a verifier of P. Whereas you can read P as bottom. So I said T, but I meant top, the top of the 0-1 lattice. The P as bot, you can read that as S is a falsifier of P. So the top and bottom arguments now act as a kind of polarities, right? So I reuse the truth values as polarities. And they will disappear in concrete translations, like I will show you. So I'll flesh this out a bit further. So bilateral semantics give verification and falsification conditions to each logical sentence. The meaning of a sentence can then be characterized as a pair of unilateral meanings. Referring to old work by Robin Cooper, who had paired intentions, for example. That was I hadn't seen that in my when I wrote my dissertation, but now, in order to model this, we could add general pairing and projection to the logic. That's a move that's very, very clear, very often done, and it's fine. But I like this. I'll give you a poor man's pairing and projection that I like better because it has slightly less overhead. Right? And we're going to define a term star of type. Well, it takes 3 arguments of a type of type T, 3, and then it's and then so right. It's a ternary relation between truth values officially. So if you feed it, and the idea is if you feed it 2 formulas, then you will have a relation, something of type TT, right? Still one short for T. If you feed it 2 formulas, then you will get a thing that says, if my argument is theta, I will give you the first first. If it's the negation of theta, I will give you the seconds. Right? If negation of theta is true, I will give you the seconds. So so then if you apply it to the top elements, so if you apply phi pair psi to the top element, you will get phi, and if you apply it to the bottom element, you will get psi. Right? So that's we now have pairing and projection, and we can generalize that to types of we can have, if you have any type that takes a series of arguments alpha and then goes to t, you can have a type that gives you two of those, right? By changing the t to tt, right? Okay. Right. So we can. So an object of type STT encodes a pair of sets of states. Now, before we look at truth makers, how much time did I use by now? Okay, I'll speed up a bit. So before we look at truth makers, let me look at the logic of first degree entailment, because it's a bilateral logic. It's simple, and we can use this technique to embed it. First, what you need to do, suppose we have on the one hand side the logic of first degree entailment, the Belknap-Dunn logic, which basically is propositional logic with a four-valued evaluation. On the other hand, we have our domain t goes to t, right? And now we set up. So let's look at the propositional letters of the first logic. We set up two bijections, one with the constants of type TT that are, let's say, even numbered, and the other with the constants of type TT that are odd numbered, right? So we call the first plus and the other plus minus, and then we translate any propositional letter to the pair Pn plus Pn minus. So so that pair will have, there are four possible truth values for that pair, right? These are just constants of type T, right? And they can each take two values, but independently from one another. So we have basically, and then we emulate the clauses that were given by Michael Dunn in 1976 or so. We just say negation swaps the positive and the negative value. We'll repeat that basically for Truthmaker semantics. The conjunction is the conjunction of the first elements of each conjunct, and the paired with the disjunction of the second elements of each conjunct, or at least their translations, and dually for the disjunction. And then you can say, we basically we basically have embedded the thing, right? So the FDE entailment relation will look at the verifiers of the translations of says all verifiers of the translation of phi are verifier for the translation of psi, and actually that's in this here it is equivalent with the other way around, right, with the falsifiers. But that depends actually on the constructs. If you have more connectives, you will lose that. You will lose that connection. Okay, so here is Belknap's lattice L4, basically. So, but now written with these pairs, right? The top pair in L4 is I'm true, and the other one is false, right? So the true, basically, it says true, not false. So my first element is true. My second element is not false. Okay. And the bottom element is bot pair top, bot pair top, and then there are two elements in between. And we can identify these with TF, N, and B of the Belknap logic. And we can also define the ordering. Basically, this is the most general entailment ordering, because that's the ordering of the lattice. And there's also an alternative lattice to the definedness lattice, or approximation lattice, that is A4. This one, where top is right. So we get more and more defined if you go upstairs. And a typological treatment of a version of situation semantics could be done in this way too. So I could redo my old work if I wanted to redo my old work. I would do it this way now. Now we can apply this to Truthmaker semantics. We must, of course, we must have, this lattice that Truthmaker semantics has. So we go to the domain DS. We say that it is a complete lattice there. We have axioms for that, and then there's the usual notation for that. And again, we'll have functions plus and minus, but now they do not go from the propositional letters of Truthmaker semantics to the constants of type T, but to the constants of type ST, right? Because we now want to have pairs of sets of truth makers. And we do that in the embedding that is given in the first, right? So we do that over here, right? So on the bottom we'll give you pairs of truth makers there. And then we basically, again, emulate the clauses very well known to you of Truthmaker semantics. This is the non-inclusive version, but here all kinds of choices pop up, of course, but we basically emulate the clauses for the Truthmaker semantics. So it can be done. Okay, so in fact, this was basically what I wanted to say, right? So it can be done. Now I need to show you, let's do it a bit, right? So let's not be completely abstract. So now, first thing we have to confront is, how do we instantiate ENT? Well, I gave you a spoiler. T is going to be instantiated as STT, but there's still a choice for E, right? And actually, if you look for example, at Kit's work, he seems to be very much in favor of also saying that objects or names corresponds to states, right? And actually, that might be a very good idea, because you almost automatically get a kind of plurality system for names, right? But for plural entities, so yeah, E could be S, but I'm going to be conservative here. I'm going to set E to E again, because if I wanted to work this out as it really should be done, I would probably go for S, right? Because it's very attractive to have just one type. We could do everything in ty1 actually, and have the pluralities more or less for free. And we have some trivial meaning postulates like Zuleika goes to Zuleika and Donald goes to Donald, right? It's simply, I just want to go from this very abstract, from the abstract constants to concrete constants, also there, but basically they're both of type E in both instances, and it's trivial. Okay, so we can now again connect abstract constants with truthmaker meanings by identifying them with certain lambda terms. I will give you an example on the following slides, how that can be done, but I find it a bit easier to do it with a certain meaning postulate schemes, because that's one of the ways that makes it possible to do the translation, once for verifies and then for falsifies, because since we have these pairs, it's handy to decouple that. So all these meaning postulates will either have the form A if and only if B, classical, right? Or A is identical to B. We could also always make them A is identical to B, because in classical type theory, that's the same thing. So unless A is of type E, it will be a term of the form. It will be headed by a constant C, which is an abstract constant. And then there will be a series of meta variables varying over constructs of the types that are needed to that have the right types to be arguments of C. And then it will end with either top or bottom. Okay. And then B must rewrite that term. So it will not contain C, but will typically it will contain mu. Okay, so here's the first translation that I have, and directly a choice pops up, right? So. So these are the meaning postulates for basic relations. So this is where the recursion bottoms out. So we say that smoke TS top goes to smoke TS, right? So and here we see the top disappear. We could also do that. We could do something very similar for smoke TS bot, say that, well, we'll go to another predicate, smoke minus TS, right? But I don't like that too much. So this is personal preference. So I'm following Plebani and two others here in a paper from 2022, where they actually use the incompatibility relation, because my notation will be slightly different from theirs, because I already heavily using the bot. But so S lightning S prime means S and S prime are in the incompatibility relation. So you have slightly more structure now than when you could take the smoke minus approach. And we do that for all these basic constants, love, etc., introduce, man, woman, etc. So, yeah, and okay, we could of course also do it directly in terms of pairs, right? So it's not really different. And then, well, now we must basically repeat all kinds of definitions. So we're basically going to use our type logic as in the way basically the meta language is used for this. So we must take over all kinds of definitions. So we must have non-emptiness of the sets of truth makers and false makers of atomic statements, right? And I'm giving here a general scheme that guarantees that non-emptiness for every delta that is in part of a certain collection. There will be at least one truth maker, and similar for the false makers. And I will also do that for accessibility relations. We'll come to accessibility relations later, or for constants denoting accessibility relations. And then we can basically again transcribe the meanings, but now in this meaning postulate form. The meanings of and, or, and not. And if you look at these translations, sometimes you see strange permutations. So and Q, why do I write and QPS? Well, that's basically because and in natural language combines, or is said to be combined with the second element. So love and admire, we have and admire as a constituent. So I like to take that over, but and then permute. So basically, these are the non-inclusive clauses. But now in natural language, you basically, well, I mentioned the example love and admire. In natural language, it's not only a connective between sentences. We have lots of, basically it connects any phrase of a given category with other phrases of that category, right? So we can have black and blue, or 2 or 3, every sailor and 3 women, etc., etc. Right? So as long as so we basically must have, we must be able to connect expressions of type alpha, vector alpha t together. And this slightly more complex translation does that. We could, if you don't see that directly, it's not important for the rest of it all. And now meaning postulates for if, and here I'm basically copying Mark, I think. Hi, Mark. But I'm diverging also. So, one thing you could do with if is, of course, is say, well, it's A if B, if AB is equivalent to not A or B, but then you get the falsifiers of A as truth makers for the implication, which is very strange in my view. So what we do here, so what Mark did is in my notation is saying, well, the verifiers for if PQ, verifiers S for if PQ, S verifies if PQ, if and only if for any S prime that you take, that is a verifier of P, Q will verify the fusion of S with S prime. Right? Am I correct? Yeah. Yeah. So my verification clause follows this general pattern, but I'm taking and I wanted exact entailments to be a residual, right? So I wanted basically to have this kind of deduction theorem like thing. If you have, so if P and Q exactly entails R, we want to P exactly entail R, well, Q, if QR, right? You see what I mean? I see puzzled faces, but okay, never mind. This is, I mean, this again is a preference for now. It's orthogonal to the rest of the system, and if anybody has an objection to it, let's change it, right? Okay, but note that verifiers of Q are also verifiers of if PQ, as in the classical case, which I find slightly disconcerting. But at least falsifiers of P do not enter the picture. Now, meaning postulates for every and A. Well, what do we do here? Let's look at the 15 minutes. Okay, thank you. Let's look at the verification clause for every here. The idea is that we say, well, basically what we want to have a fusion of all the if clauses that go from, for every x, we want to take the if bx and b prime x, or the other way around. Yeah, if bx and b prime x, and we want to fuse them for all these. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a function that goes from e to s, right? And I say S will be the fusion of all values of F for any X. If that, well, this is made dependent on the if clause, so we can change the if clause, and then this will change as well. If it is the case that for all X, Fx is a verifier for if Bx B prime X. And the falsifying condition is, I think, very conservative. It says we have, so we have S1 and S2 and X, such that S is the fusion of S1 and S2. Bx is made true by S1, and B prime X is made false by S1. And the clauses for A are completely dual, right? So that's so here's an example. So we take every girl likes to like again. How do we get from that abstract meaning to a concrete truthmaker meaning? Well, we say we are after the falsifiers here. So we could also be after the verifiers, but that would be long. Right? We're after the falsifiers, so we place an S after the term and also the bottom, the bot. So what is it for S to falsify every girl likes Truthmaker? And you see that I here have taken away all these parentheses by a general rule that makes that possible in lambda calculus. And then we will basically transcribe constant by constant. So here, from here to here is given by a meaning postulate for the constant every. From here to here is given by a meaning postulate for the constant Truthmaker. Then we go to here and we take by the meaning postulates for girl, and then we have to rewrite like, and we get after beta conversions, right? We get this one. We can actually translate the logic, well, basically to first order logic now, right? If you put a lambda s before it, then you have sets of a set of truth makers, falsifiers in this case. But yeah, well, again, here you see that the Falseman Avern disappear, but results can become pretty complicated. Here, I would actually love to, I would love to implement it. I know how to do that, but I don't need model checkers for that. But I can do the prologue. But yeah, it's handy. Implementation is always handy. Okay, then closure operators. It's quite so. This is actually important, but not very new. So it's quite clear that the meaning of an expression is not its semantic value as I've given it, but it's well, if my clause are worth anything at all, it's the regular closure of those semantic values. And you can simply define what regular closure is in the logic. And I will write, and I will get, here you have a notation for the rest. So I'm taking over Fine's notation for regular closure because I don't want to write all these things over and over again. So let's look at modals and attitude verbs. Now I will basically stop, unless Lucas says that I have to stop earlier. 10 more minutes. 7. Oh yeah, well, that's more than enough. So yeah, first remark: language is of course multimodal, right? We don't have one. It's not the case that we only have one modality or attitude. We have lots and lots of them, and they have to work in tandem. In possible world semantics, this can be modeled very naturally by letting each modal or attitude verb come with an accessibility, its own accessibility relation, basically, right? And we need something similar, and I will do that for, let's say, belief. So we'll have a term or constant B of type ESST. So it takes, it's basically a relation between a person, the believer, and two states. And we can read B John as naught, as naught verifies that as one is one of John's belief states, right? So we have a verifier for the fact that there is this accessibility relation. And then a belief state, being a belief state of X, well, intuitively means verifying the conjunction of a certain set of X's beliefs, maybe X's explicit beliefs or something like that. but it's so, and I'll refer to the set of states such that T such that S verifies that those states are in the belief set of T. Well, that I will call the total belief, T's total belief set in S. And we could also have, let's say, so the E is not very relevant here. So we could also have an N of type STT, where N S1, S0 expresses that S0 verifies that S1 verifies the conjunction of a given body of norms or a code of conduct in Kit-Finds terms. And other modals and attitudes can follow the same pattern. And then meaning postulates for belief. And I'm following Mark up to a certain point, because I want to point out that now beliefs can be iterated, right? So it's but the basic idea in Mark's paper of last year was that, well, you can have a relation of conjunctive parthood, which is of course very central to the system. And you can define that, and I'm defining that here. And then you can say, well, S verifies that T believes P if you first take the regular closure of the set of T's belief states in S, right? Belief set in S. You take the belief set of T in S, and you take the regular closure of it. Or we could stipulate that these belief sets are closed under convexity closed and closed under completions. Is this still on? Yeah. Okay. And then you say that the set of verifiers of P is a conjunctive part of that set. But again, you need to take the regular closure of the set of verifiers of P. So you now have a notion of what follows. So you now have an internal notion of entailment for the belief operator that is basically analytic containment, right? And we could do that again for the falsifiers, but now we make sure that we have so any, you could say any S that does this will any S prime that does the above will have will be incoherent with S, or will. Right? So the walrus believes that pigs have wings is verified by S. If pigs have wings is analytically contained by the walrus's total belief set in S, something like that. It's falsified by S if S is in conflict with any S prime, such that the walrus's total belief set in S prime contains pigs have wings. Okay. Yes, I think I'll come to a conclusion. But it's a very short conclusion. I've sketched how fragments of natural language can be provided for the bilateral truthmaker semantics. I've given a toy fragment, but it was programmatic. Obviously needs expanding in several directions. May equally obviously, I'm almost sure, need revisions. And some expansions may simply consist in incorporating work that has already been done in the philosophical logical literature. Right? I've been doing this very heavily right? And others need to be developed from scratch. For example, generalized quantifiers, right? But there are many other. So I would also love to see a theory of plurality along the lines of right, along the lines of Truthmaker Semantics. I would really, really love to see the theory of questions, etc. Right? So, but yeah, thanks.